So we'll head out, see you out there.
Andrew Laming's political career hangs in the balance.
Morning. Where are we standing, everyone?
The Queensland MP came under fire last month when two female constituents, including the wife of a local councillor, accused him of aggressive behaviour online.
I don't want to be attacked anymore.
Dr Laming apologised to both women and announced he would leave politics at the next election.
And I express my regret and deep apologies for the hurt and the distress that communication may have caused.
He's been disendorsed, but so far he's resisted calls for him to leave Parliament immediately. Two female coalition MPs have expressed their concerns about his behaviour.
Andrew, how are you feeling going in?
Are you comfortable with him being in your party room?
I'm not comfortable with the conduct, and I hope that Andrew makes the right decision.
What he's been doing is completely outrageous.
Dr Laming has now announced he's been diagnosed with ADHD.
As a medically trained person, I really genuinely had no idea that ADHD and hyperactivity was an adult condition. I just thought it was something in the schoolyard.
Tonight, 3 more women are speaking out about how their interactions with Dr Laming made them feel uncomfortable. They say his behaviour is inappropriate for a Member of Parliament. Professor Gemma Carey met Andrew Laming on a flight from Canberra to Sydney in March 2015.
I was sitting by the window, so I was wedged in by him. He had the aisle seat. He began by sort of saying, what do you do? And he said, well, I'm a politician. You would have seen me in the news this week. He asked me a lot of questions, but it was a very chaotic exchange where I felt like I was being spoken at by Andrew Laming. I wasn't really speaking to him.
Professor Carey said Dr Laming made comments about her appearance.
Things like, are you from Canberra? You don't look like you're from Canberra. You look too cosmopolitan. He said things like, you have such a lovely figure in that outfit. I was deeply uncomfortable. I felt like I was trapped next to someone who was just being completely inappropriate, irrespective of their job.
Whenever the seatbelt sign is on, you must have your seatbelt fastened.
Professor Carey says Dr Laming repeatedly asked her to join him for drinks at a function in Sydney.
He said, I'm going out to an art gallery after this. You should come with me. We'll have lots of cocktails, it'll be great. And I sort of, politely said, I won't be doing that. He didn't stop asking, even when I said that.
So he wasn't deterred?
No, not at all. Not at all. He was not deterred by my trying to not engage with him. He was not deterred by my body language in trying to shift away from him. He was not deterred when I said, I'm not going to come out, thank you for the invitation, but I'm not interested.
Professor Carey said they got off the flight in Sydney and she went to the baggage carousel.
I was really relieved, and I went and I collected my bag, and then I was exiting in Sydney Airport to get a taxi, and as I approached the doors, he was standing there again. Only this time he had his driver with him, who was very tall, an imposing figure, completely silent. And Andrew Laming again started saying, come out, we're going to an art gallery, come out. And I said, no, I'm not interested and I can't.
She says Dr Laming insisted she accept a lift to her hotel.
Again, I declined numerous times. He is remarkably persistent, and I think as probably many women have experienced, you get to a point where you just think, you know what, it'll just be easier. I'll just get this lift against my better judgment. And I said, okay, I'll accept a lift to where I'm staying, but I'm not coming out.
So how did it end?
I think when it became clear that I was definitely not going to go, he became quite disinterested. So then he started just playing on his phone and he was text messaging And at the hotel, it was the driver got out, opened the door for me, got me my luggage. Lamming, I don't think, even said goodbye. I actually called my mum and said, this really strange thing has happened, and told her the story. And, I really just needed to debrief with someone because it all felt so strange and I did feel very uncomfortable.
Dr Lamming declined repeated requests for an interview, but in a statement he told 7:30 the offer of a lift to a hotel or drink is not uncommon where work interests overlapped. 6 years after a flight, these allegations have been tweeted and politically tagged 4 times over the last month. Questions about Andrew Lamming's behaviour extend beyond Australia. In 2012, he led a delegation to the Philippines. Megan Lewis was on that trip. At the time, she was Assistant Secretary of the ALP in Tasmania.
The purpose of the delegation was to promote greater understanding, closer ties between Australia and the Philippines.
She soon became concerned about Dr Lamming's behaviour on the trip.
We travelled all over the Philippines in various different places, and I started to notice that Andrew, if there was a young woman there, Andrew would invade her personal space, in my opinion, and ask for her number. I found it extremely embarrassing and stressful. To see it again and again.
Megan Lewis said she discussed the problem with another delegate from the Department of Finance, who called her boss in Australia to complain.
So her boss came back to her and said, well, there's not much you can do about it while you're over there. He is the lead of the delegation, unfortunately, and suggested that, it could possibly be reported when she gets back and they can go through everything, but in the meantime, we've just got to try and get through it with minimal, and try and minimise the amount of times that this happens.
Dr. Andrew Lamming, the head of delegation of the Australian Parliament, sir. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to have you in the show, sir.
Megan Lewis said it reached the point where she confronted Dr Lamming about his behaviour on the 7-day trip.
I said to him in front of, because the whole delegation were all on a little bus, and said to him, Andrew, seriously, why do you need her phone number? What are you going to do with it? And he said, oh, well, and he had a big smirk on his face and said, oh, well, I might want to talk to her about, learn more about her government. And then just kind of laughed.
Dr Lamming said in 15 years of leading delegations, he had never received a complaint. He pointed out Miss Lewis was an ALP delegate. A Liberal Party delegate, Michael Van Dissel, told 7:30 he saw nothing untoward and never saw or heard him ask for anyone's numbers.
The member for Warringah has the call.
One of the biggest things I was shocked about in coming into Parliament, there are no professional conduct rules for members of Parliament. There are no boundaries. There is just simply no ethical behaviour expected. That is unacceptable and needs to change.
Back in Dr Lamming's Queensland electorate, China Bennett had just turned 19 when she encountered the MP in a restaurant. It was 2019 and she'd just finished her shift at the local pub.
I went to dinner to Taco Bell just after me and my friend finished work. We just had some dinner, nothing of it, and as we were leaving, Andrew Lamming approached me and started to have a conversation with me.
China says Dr Lamming asked if he could add her as a friend on Facebook. He said he'd like to keep her updated on his work in the community. She reluctantly agreed.
If it was any other person, I probably would have thought that was a bit weird for a middle-aged man to ask a 19-year-old to add them on Facebook. It wasn't a very comfortable situation. Just felt very forced and stuff like that, and sort of had to engage with it.
She says she didn't tell him her name, but she was wearing a name badge on her work uniform.
10, 15 minutes after that, got a friend request off Facebook, and yeah.
From Andrew Laming?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what was your reaction to that?
I felt very creeped out. Like, he, you know, looked me up that easy and found it straight away and stuff like that. Like, it wasn't like he found me while we were in Taco Bell and said, "Is this your profile?" He, as I left, he added me and stuff like that. So it felt a bit creepy.
China told her mother, who complained about Dr. Laming on her public Facebook page. She said she couldn't believe he'd approached her daughter at Taco Bell and asked if he could add her on Facebook after seeing her name on her work badge. She said her daughter felt uncomfortable.
You shouldn't have to sort of agree to someone just because he felt obliged to do it because he's a high person in Parliament or high person just in your community.
Dr. Laming told 7:30 his office aimed to add every young adult to his electorate Facebook profile by first seeking their full name and permission. He said China was enthusiastic about receiving a friend request.
We are here to serve our community and assist people that need our help and represent their views. Reaching into that private sphere of people's life, in particular if it is uninvited, is concerning.
Independent federal MP Zali Steggall says there should be clear rules governing MPs' conduct on social media.
Because we are in an incredibly important role. We have access to a lot of sensitive information in respect to the people in our electorate. There is a duty of care in relation to that information, that it be used carefully.
Cool, that's fine. Thanks very much. See you soon. Bye.
On the weekend, Dr. Laming told News Corp that he'd completed his empathy training, saying it was incredibly insightful, helpful and useful.
Empathy training sounds to me like a quick fix, band-aid fix, and we don't need that. We have very good research on what kind of education you do, and it needs to be research-based, and it needs to be very engaging, and it needs to be top-down and bottom-up. Essentially, they're looking at it as a political issue, and they can't get rid of Andrew Laming because it would be a by-election in the wrong climate. And this is not about politics. This is about doing the right thing.
Dr. Laming says all complaints are utterly without substance, and over 2 decades in office, any elected official doing their job is likely to upset or annoy a handful of men and women. He says his hyper-energetic, familiar and available approach is appreciated by most, but on rare occasions makes others uncomfortable. And he says if made aware, his political office had always addressed minor concerns at the time, directly and politely.
I think stop Morrison, just sending him off to empathy training wasn't enough at all. He should have done a lot more to show his responsibility as a Prime Minister as well, and showing that he's on top of it and stuff like that.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.